When you think about gaming, what comes to mind? Maybe you're swamped with memories of your childhood, or maybe you'll think of the preconceived idea that they're not good for you, they're a waste of time, or even that they're for kids. Obviously, cozy gaming is a big part of my life and a big part of my friends' lives as well. I have experienced and seen firsthand the way that these games have helped us connect with each other, but also with ourselves, and it made me start to wonder why. If there's this mainstream idea of video games that seems to be mostly negative, and if video games are nothing but that, just games, then why is it that cozy gaming has become such an important part of our self-care routine and so popular in the last few years? And why does it feel like it's such a contrast to what we've heard about gaming forever? I'm going scientist on you. And so I decided to make a video about this to kind of share my take. Maybe I can convince someone to give cozy gaming a shot in 2025, or at the very least I can be a voice in the large space of the internet for the importance of gaming in a world that seems jet set and making it seem like a waste of time. So grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and let's talk about it. The first point I want to emphasize is that the world is going through unprecedented times. We can all feel it, and studies actually show that we are going through something called a stress crisis in the United States. And who can blame us? The horrors persist and persist and persist. But so do we. We currently live in a rapidly changing world that is making it really hard to find balance. Nearly 40% of Americans have reported to be at high peak stress at this time. And truly, this is not happening only in the United States. I feel like wherever you are in the world, everyone is feeling pretty similarly with the current climate. And of course, stress is a normal response to life, but it can become really detrimental if you have a lot of stress for long periods of time. It can lead to a lot of different physical and mental issues, and that kind of leads me to the importance of hobbies in 2025. For a while, I think a lot of people would make their hobbies their job, and now there's been a push against that where people are just saying, just have a hobby for the sake of having a hobby. And I personally really love the rise of hobbies popularity. Hobbies have been proven to reduce the amount of cortisol in your body, which is one of the most widely studied hormones related to stress. For example, there was a study in which about 75% of participants' cortisol levels lowered just by making art. I feel like there's a reason why hobbies have become so popular recently, and especially in the last 5 years or so, there has been a tip over toward the rise of self-care and hobbies in general. And in my opinion, those things make sense to be correlated to each other for us to have higher stress, and then also finding some kind of way to manage that stress by finding hobbies and fighting against the monotony of our day-to-day life and the horrors. And lowering your cortisol levels has a lot of really positive health benefits. It's better for your sleep, it lowers your blood pressure, helps your immune system, your cardiac health, your overall energy, and as well as reduces anxiety and depression. I think cozy gaming has become one of the biggest hobbies, at least in 2025. And cozy gaming is nothing but that, just a really nice hobby to have. Whether you're spending your time before bed, playing your favorite farming sim after a long day at work, hanging out in gaming communities and Twitch streams, or watching videos online about the new upcoming games. We've definitely seen a rise in its popularity in the last 5 years or so. Starting in 2020, for obvious reasons, video game usage actually went up 75%. It makes so much sense. In my opinion, people were trying to find solace and escape in cozy gaming, and it soon became an important part of our day-to-day lives. A safe space not only within those games, but also as an online community. From the very beginning, the cozy gaming online space has strived to be a place when people can be themselves, make friends, and come together solely for the love of gaming. Everyone was welcomed as long as they were nice, and I feel like it made gaming accessible again. It wasn't about competition, it wasn't about being a real gamer, it was only there for the purpose of comfort. And it's no surprise that with the rise of cozy gaming, we've also seen a rise of studies backing up the idea that gaming is good for your well-being, which contradicts what we've been told for years. Which then leads me to my second point of my research, and another part that I found really interesting that has actually been proven now, that games can be good for your mental well-being and in some ways even make you smarter, which I was not expecting that. An Oxford study published in Royal Society Open Science found that gaming doesn't appear to harm mental health at all. And one part that I found really interesting about this study in particular is that it is not related to what kind of game you're playing. It's mostly related to your relationship with that game, and if you're playing it because you love it and you want to play it, which I thought was really interesting and kind of backs up the idea that any game can be a cozy game depending on who you are and how you interact with the game itself. I also found this really cool review of previous studies that talked about how video games can actually be used as a mental health intervention, and it can be a really good tool in improving people's mental well-being, especially when they're struggling with anxiety, depression, and ADHD. I think that's really cool. And then there was also another study done. It's titled Causal Effect of Video Gaming on Mental Well-Being in Japan 2020 to 2022. This is the most comprehensive investigation to date on the causal relationship between video gaming and mental well-being. And in this research, 97,602 Japanese residents ranging from 10 years old to 69 years old having a console significantly improve their mental well-being. It's really interesting to look at this new scientific findings because it really goes to show how gaming has changed, the perception of gaming has changed. We've seen it in the gaming industry with how many cozy games we've gotten in the last few years, and especially this year, how many new companies are getting involved in creating cozy games. But also, I think most importantly, we've seen it in our lives, and it's really interesting. Sometimes I think there's this dissonance of like, well, you know, I love gaming and I feel good when I'm gaming. Should I feel guilty about this? And the answer is no, you shouldn't. There's even some studies that suggest that gaming can improve your brain imaging, decision making, strategy planning, memory, hand-eye coordination, brain flexibility. So truly all signs point to the idea that gaming is actually a really wonderful hobby to get into. And the reason I feel cozy gaming is very popular, and also one of the reasons why I think everyone should get into cozy gaming, is because it's also really accessible. Not only accessible in the way that they are games for every taste now, there's also games for every budget as well, which I think is really awesome. You don't even need a console to play a cozy game anymore. You can play cozy games from your phone now for free. And a lot of industries have started to make all kinds of games more accessible to all kinds of people in the way that they manage their difficulty levels, which I have been seeing that coming up in the gaming industry in the last 2 to 3 years, and it makes me really, really excited. But then there's also a beautiful part of the cozy gaming community that also really focuses on accessibility in terms of disabilities. Every time that we have a cozy gaming developing industry, they make such a good point highlighting their accessibility features in their games. There's also quite a few organizations that I will link below that focus on making gaming more accessible for all kinds of people. Whenever we see Wholesome Games directs, they always make such a point to highlight accessibility in gaming. Whenever we watch Whitethorn Games talk about their new upcoming games, they make such a point in making every single one of the games that they stand behind accessible for the majority amount of people. And I just think that makes cozy gaming a space that feels a lot safer for people in general. And also, we as a community are also very diverse. And I don't know that there are a lot of content creation fields or gaming fields in particular that have such a diverse cast of pioneers. You know, we have so many queer people, we have people of all genders, we have people of all walks of life talking about cozy gaming. And I personally just feel very proud of that. The way that this community has such strong foundations in diversity and representation and making it a safe space for everybody is really showing the more that it grows, and I just think that's really awesome. There's also two things two other things that I really wanted to talk about that I find really interesting about cozy gaming. The first thing is the importance of third spaces. I think this has been a really interesting conversation that we've seen happening online for a long time now. For those who don't know, the third space is something that people used to have back in the day. It was like a place that you frequent that isn't work or home, and is basically the place where you would recharge or socialize, and how those third spaces were so good for balance and mental health and having like a more well-rounded life, I suppose. Well, nowadays those third spaces are basically inexistent, and for a lot of people inaccessible, because a lot of these third spaces are charging money, and we also have impossible schedules where we barely have time to do anything other than work and sleep. So I think there's something to be said about online communities kind of, not 100%, but definitely in some way replacing those third spaces. And I definitely feel like the cozy gaming community is one of those spaces that I would consider my third space, where I get to hang out with people online, I get to have relationships with people, and I get to talk about things that we're all passionate about and make friends. This is like personal, but when I first started making cozy gaming content, the only reason I did it was because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and make friends. And the amount of friends I have now, thanks to the cozy gaming community, truly makes me emotional. It makes me so grateful for this online space that we've created. If you're someone who is craving that kind of community, then I definitely do recommend joining cozy gaming communities online, because they are just the most loving, accepting, sweet beings out there. And the last thing that I wanted to mention, we all have this almost tacit understanding that we are all kind of connecting with our inner children in a way, and just the importance of whimsy and play in our lives. I know that like inner child work is a sentence that has been thrown about so much that it basically doesn't mean anything anymore. In one way or another, a lot of people in the cozy gaming community are on the same kind of wavelength of healing those wounds through gaming, having this relationship to something that is escapism, while at the same time connecting to a deeper part of you, which seems completely opposite but somehow makes sense to me. Allowing ourselves to play again in a world that seems so serious all the time. I recently asked you guys why you gravitated toward cozy gaming. I got so many beautiful, heartfelt answers, and surprise, surprise, none of them were because I want to be the best gamer in the world or whatever. I appreciate all of your answers, by the way. It was a lot of, I wanted to connect with my inner child. I wanted to work on my PTSD. I want to lead a more balanced life. I want to slow down. And it just goes to show that cozy gaming is kind of bigger than just gaming, and let alone the fact that games are such a beautiful works of art. In my opinion, one of the highest forms of art. It incorporates so many arts in one: storytelling, visual arts, animation, and technology, music, and sound effects. I think there's something to be said also about that experience enriching your life in the same way that any kind of art would. In conclusion, I guess what I really wanted to say is that I'm so grateful for the space that we've created online, in which people can come in and be welcomed with open arms and be able to play and escape from their day-to-day life, especially in an era of mental health crisis. I think we've created something really beautiful here, and I think it's important that we preserve it and protect it, and also learn the importance of what we're doing and why we're doing it. I guess this is just a love letter to cozy gaming and the people that I've met through cozy gaming. I love you, and I am curious also to see in the comments if you have anything to add to this conversation. Why did you start cozy gaming? When did you start it? How do you feel it has changed your life, if it has? This was a little bit of a different video for me. I was just really interested to learn more about this and kind of talk to you about it. And the whole time that I've been writing for this video, I have honestly been the most excited to read your comments. I'm so curious to know your thoughts. Yeah, anyway, thank you for listening to me talking for this long. I really appreciate it if you made it this far. Please comment below a little coffee emoji, and that way I will know that you made it to the end. Remember to to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps my channel so much. But most importantly, remember to take care of yourself, have some rest, have some water, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.